I feel like I'm lost. A lot has happened since my last post, and I don't even know where to begin. I've tried multiple times to type this out, but my head has been killing me. My vision gets so blurry, and I feel the need to lay down every single time. But I feel slightly better now. That night, after typing out my story, I sat in the bathroom for a couple of minutes. I felt an emptiness in my chest, almost as if my heart had sunk down into a bottomless pit. I stared at the door waiting for a knock or maybe a rattle. I feared that the thing pretending to be my husband would break the door down and I'd have nowhere to go. I feared going out there, my own bedroom, and being in the dark with whatever that thing was. I looked at the tiny window in the back of the bathroom, wondering if I could fit through there. It didn't matter if I'd fall 50 feet to my death. I was overwhelmed with fear. I pictured that thing silently waiting by the door and felt tears run down my cheeks, realizing that I had found myself in a corner. That's when I heard something, a soft sound coming from the door. I flinched silently when I realized that it was a scratching sound and tried my best to hold in a scream. But all my fears disappeared when I saw a little white paw trying to reach underneath the door. Perhaps he wanted to be in here with me, or perhaps he wanted to comfort me. The thought of my cat being out there gave me a moment of courage. I silently opened the door and stepped out. I had braced myself for anything while quietly whispering a prayer, hoping that I wouldn't see anything unnatural. Maximus, my cat, lit by the light emanating from the bathroom, reached out to me. I picked him up. The darkness was overwhelming. I slowly took one step out of the bedroom when I heard his voice. "Becky?" Jay whispered in a sickly voice. I only saw his shape in the dark. He was still on the bed. I felt Maximus tense up in my arms. "Bex?" I heard the cover shift and the bed creak. He sat up. I don't feel alright. I didn't say anything. I wanted to make sure that I could get away if something happened. I took a step back. Jay began to sob. He buried his head into his hands. And even though it was too dark to make out anything other than his shape, I was still taken aback by seeing him cry. "I did a horrible thing," he cried and then coughed. I wanted to comfort him, to see what was going on. Maybe all of this had been paranoia. Maybe he wasn't possessed or whatever I thought he was. And that I just imagined all of this. Maybe this wasn't real to begin with. I felt stabs of guilt for doubting him. I still loved my husband from the depths of my heart, and I wanted to be there for him. Abruptly, the crying stopped. "Bex?" he spoke up. "Turn on the light." I watched his shadow sit up straight and just watch me, motionless. I tried to protest. "Jay, He just stared at me. I felt intense fear. I feared what I might see if I was to turn on the light. "Jay, please go to bed. I love you, but you need help," I stammered. Maximus relaxed in my arms. "We can talk tomorrow." Jay sighed and laid back down. I waited for a couple of seconds and watched. He was motionless, and soon after, I began to hear snores. With Maximus in the passenger seat, I drove away from our home. I felt relief like never before. I felt safe. I needed help, but I had no one else in the city except for the man that I was afraid of. I picked up my phone and called the only other person who could help me. Jay's mom was a sweet woman. She had been very accepting of me despite the cultural differences. We never really had a proper conversation since there was a bit of a language barrier, but I was desperate right now. It took her 3 rings to pick up. She sounded cheery on the other end, but we had trouble understanding each other. She kept mentioning Jay's name, which I interpreted as her asking me to put him on the phone to translate for me. But since I couldn't put him on, it didn't work out. She hung up and I began to cry in frustration. I felt completely lost and alone. I considered calling my dad for a second, but we hadn't spoken in years, and I was hesitant about it. But before I could make that decision, I got a call back from Jay's mom, and I answered immediately. "Hello?" I heard an enthusiastic male voice on the other end. "Becky? This is Mohit, Jay's cousin. Is everything okay? Where's Jay?" I could hear Jay's mom talking in the back. I assumed telling him what to say. "Mohit, I don't know where to start. I broke down. I told him everything that happened and he listened. There was a moment of silence as he translated everything to Jay's mom. And then another silence took over. And then she began to say something. And Mohit translated every word of it. The enthusiasm had been sucked out of his voice. "Becky, Bua tells you to stay strong. There was something off with the boy the last day he was here, but we assumed that he missed you. Bua hoped it was just that. You should stay away from him for now. My Bua will talk to someone who knows about this stuff, but just try to be safe. We will be praying for you." I listened to every word he said. "For now, if you can, go home and turn on every light. Do not, I repeat, do not let it get dark in there. You must be brave, Becky. We'll be here if you need us." "Should I go now?" I asked. Mohit asked Jay's mom before getting back to me. "No, go in the morning. There's no telling what danger you'll be in right now." A night of terrible dreams awaited. There were bells, but louder, and with every ring my head hurt more. I was in the middle of a clearing in a dense forest. The night sky was devoid of the moon. The only light came from a large fire in the distance, around which a long-haired figure danced. His limbs were spindly and moved in an impossible manner. It was like a snake. He flowed as he danced around the fire, contorting and swinging his limbs. He seemed naked. And then I heard howls that sounded as if they were coming from the depths of human throats. They came from the trees all over. I was paralyzed and felt a sense of doom. And then I saw it in the sky. Tall and dark, the shadow rose. 2 glinting yellow eyes and large horns reaching up higher than I could see. The rays of the sun woke me. The dreams had scared me so much that I would have wept again if I had more tears. Maximus was laying in between my feet, looking up at me with innocent eyes. I held him and let out a silent cry. The daylight had given me some courage, and when I got back to my apartment, I wasn't surprised to find it empty. The door had been left wide open. I felt a sense of relief when Maximus walked around the place without being spooked. But I still checked every corner to make sure I was alone. I turned on every light I could and began to leave when I heard something walking into the apartment. It was Jay. I froze for a second looking at him. His eyes looked tired, and he still wore the same clothes from the night before. He stumbled, and then before he could say something, he collapsed on the floor. He reeked of alcohol, and as much as I wanted to leave, I didn't want to leave him like that. I got him a pillow and a blanket since I couldn't drag him to bed. I hesitated, but did eventually put a hand over his head and he grabbed it softly. With his eyes still closed, he began to speak in a soft, drunken voice. "Becky, I love you," he slurred. "I'm scared." He began to sob. "I'm here," I whispered, comforting him. "Please tell him to stop," he mumbled. "Who?" I asked with a chill running down my spine. "The old man at the door. He wants me to let him in," he said. "Look." I looked towards the open door, scared. There was no one there. "Becky, he hesitated. "I think I did something bad." "What did you do?" I asked him. "It's okay. Tell me." I bit my lip, anticipating whatever was to come, while keeping an eye on the door. "In India, on the way to my village, I met a man." Jay opened his eyes, looking up at the ceiling. He was alone on the road, surrounded by a forest. He looked like a hitchhiker. I don't know why, but I stopped for him. Jay's eyes widened out of fear, and I felt him tremble. He passed out. I called Jay's mom, even though it was probably in the middle of the night back in India. She got Mohit on the phone, and they told me that they had contacted a local priest who would be performing a cleansing prayer tomorrow. He reassured me that I shouldn't worry and that things would be fine. But for now, I should keep my distance no matter what. I was tempted to listen to Jay's heartbeat. Maybe this time I would hear something. But the idea of touching him just made me feel anxious. It was like hugging a spider. Even though I was afraid, the sunlight made me a little bold. I felt a little tug on my pants, and I saw Maximus down there. He seemed a little bit more relaxed, so I picked him up and put him next to his bowl of food. After calling in sick to work, I laid on the bed, watched the sun for a moment. I then looked at my phone and scrolled for a while, looking for similar situations like mine. I fell asleep and woke up right in the middle of the night. I jolted up, scared knowing what I'd just done, and then walked out into the living room. Jay wasn't there, and the door was slightly open. However, what was even more odd was that his clothes were lying right in the middle of the floor, as if he had just slipped out of them and never bothered to put them away. I checked out into the halls, but they seemed empty. There were no signs of him at all. I tried calling his phone, but it was left in his pants. I decided then that I would take my mother-in-law's advice and leave. I got my stuff and began looking for Maximus. I knew he would be in here somewhere, as the door wasn't open wide enough for him to leave. I checked in the living room, under the couch, and behind the television stand, but he wasn't there. Then I went to the bedroom and looked under the bed, and my heart dropped. I saw my husband, naked under the bed, on all fours. His face was frozen in a smile, and stood still as his eyes were locked onto me. He seemed paralyzed, where only his eyes moved, following me. I couldn't see all of his body. It was concealed in darkness underneath. The house had been completely lit, and I really hoped that Maximus wasn't under there. Still facing the bed, and praying that he didn't come out, I immediately ran into the bathroom. But Maximus wasn't there either. I couldn't find him, and even though I wanted to keep looking, I was scared. I ran out of the house and sat in my car. I had no idea what was going on anymore. I called 911 and waited in my car for the cops to show up. I just want things to end. I feel like a coward right now, and I really hope no one will suffer due to my lack of strength. I don't know if anything is listening to my prayers right now, but I just want my life back. My headache's back again. so I'll end my post here. I'll update again as soon as I can. If you're reading this, please cherish what you have. Be grateful for your loved ones and tell them how much you appreciate them.